Greetings. My name is Yirser, Hotep, and this is my friend and one of my teachers, the architect, Yusef Sudah. And what we're here doing is that we're just having a continuation of some conversations that we've been having. We started it off talking about the nature of reality,
Yes.
the last time.
Right.
And so, because both of us are of a particular heritage and background, what I sort of wanted to discuss today is what is, reality in terms of being a person of African descent. What does that mean to be African? And what realizations do we need to come to in order for us to achieve what we might call liberation?
Okay. Well, truly, if I had a complete answer to that question, we would not be having the discussion. Okay. However, I think that frequently within the quote-unquote conscious community, within the scholastic community, there's always a desire to come forth with what we consider to be things that we quote-unquote ought to do. Example, we ought to have businesses. We ought to have land. We ought to have things.
Mm-hmm.
The primary difficulty that I think that those offerings cause is that the focus has to do with something exterior to us. The acquisition of an article, the acquisition of a thing or some commodity. That poses a very special problem because it doesn't get to the core of what needs to be addressed to resolve issues that are paramount no matter what things we have, no matter what articles or acquisitions, whether that's car, land, etc. There are things as exterior to us that doesn't address things that are very vital for us to handle. Now, we have a capacity. As human beings, we have a capacity. During our last conversation, I said to you that the African is the parent of mankind. And because that's true, no people have ever preceded our existence. Everyone is subsequent to our existence. They are where they are because we are who we are, because we're their parents. We created thought. There was no thinking prior to our existence. There was no thought prior to our existence. That is a reflection of our capability. That capability is a capacity, a substantive something that we don't see, but it's there, that we need to utilize in order to create the solutions that are activities that may result in things, but it has to be thought, feel that capacity, and then use that capacity to then create the something that we want to resolve. Now, I liken that to the idea, I think as we talked before, if I have a small glass, it has a capacity. If I have a trash can, it has a capacity. The capacity of the glass is smaller than the capacity of the trash can. Now, the larger the vessel is, the more capacity it has. Well, we have unlimited capacity. Human beings have unlimited capacity. That means that there's nothing in the universe that could totally fill our capability of receiving it or being receptive of it, receiving of it. We have to take this capacity that we have and do that something that was done before. Once we can honor the capacity, the capability, then we can create the something that's required to solve the things that we have provided an analysis for, that we've been observant of. Those things might involve some of the things that we have now, but they will in fact require that we create things that exceed the things that we have now. Some of that has to do with, if my capacity to be a good friend is one that affords me the opportunity to not only be accountable, have a sense of integrity, a sense of character, a sense of responsibility and accountability. That capability makes it possible for you to interact with me in such a way that we then can take our joint energy, our joint skills, and then create the something that we're trying to resolve. That's where I think we should begin in terms of understanding our capability.
Okay, so my question then becomes, what was it that we had before that we need to recreate? And are we able to do certain things, you sort of mentioned how we focus on individual things like getting some land, getting a business.
Yes.
Can we do those things while simultaneously developing our capacity to really see the entire picture and to really solve the meta problem, so to speak, like this underlying issue of you might say it's dealing with identity, like who are we? Mm-hmm. And the way I always frame the question is, because of the fact that I do yoga, right?
Sure.
From a yoga perspective, is number one, self-realization.
Yes.
Understanding who you are, mm-hmm. What is your true nature, what is your true capacity, and number two, self-actualization. Mm-hmm. Once you understand who you are and what your true nature is, how do you put that into practice, and how do you actually create the reality and the actuality that you know exists for yourself?
I think we have underestimated our capacity. I don't think we have a viewpoint of what we are capable of doing. And in many instances, I believe that we do not see capacity as a necessary part of our understanding so that we could utilize it. You follow me? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like having this extraordinary capability, but we have such a narrow view of that capability that we never even identify it as being something that's part of our ability, our skill, that's available to us. We don't see it as being available. In our last conversation, we talked about the invisible holds up the visible. Mm-hmm. Well, the apparency of the capability is sitting before us, but we don't recognize it. Therefore, we don't acknowledge it. And unless we acknowledge it, we can't utilize it. It's sort of like if I have a need to eat something, and say I'm not personally a meat eater, but let's say I'm hunting, but I do have the capability of taking my shotgun or my arrow or my bow and arrow and hunting, but not knowing that I have the capability to utilize it or even to learn to use it, even though there are animals in front of me that I could, hunt. I won't do it because I don't see the capability, because I don't recognize the instrument, the tool being available for me to do that. So the same thing is true. If I have a mind, and this mind is fully capable of creating anything I want, unless I acknowledge that capability, I will never utilize it. Therefore, if I then want to embrace solutions, I don't even see the obvious because I don't see it. It's sort of like I say many times, nothing's more obvious than air, but we don't see it.
So what are we missing?
We're missing first to acknowledge that we have the capability. Once we acknowledge we have the capability, then we can set forth the work that's necessary to say there's no limits upon which I can utilize gaining ability to then therefore solve my problem. There's a capability, then there's an ability. My teacher, you, have the capability of doing things with your body that I do not. But I don't have the lack of capability, I just have to gain the ability.
So what I would say,
yes,
is that my capability is not what I do with my body, but what that generates.
Yes.
So when I practice my yoga, there's people who can do all kinds of stuff that I can't do in terms of movements, postures, but everything you're saying is dovetailing into like what is the end result, or why do you practice?
Yes.
So you practice because you want to create an environment in your mind where you can see
yes
that you have this unlimited capacity
That's correct. Yes.
to create. And also the technology of doing the movements and the postures and the breathing and the meditation and all the other practice and then all the other sort of mental exercises that you do is for the purpose of putting you into certain states of consciousness where you can achieve something like, say, lucid dreaming, for example.
Yes.
So in lucid dreaming, you can be present in a dream and you can create a reality that you wouldn't be able to imagine yourself creating in your in your wakeful state.
Yes. You're taking the capability that you have. You're then including in that capability ability, which is where the skills come from. Then you're utilizing the progression of using your body to gain better skill of doing something that you do. Okay? As an architect, I have a capability of being an architect. But the more I practice my craft, the more ability I gain by practicing the craft. I get more skill as a result of the practice. The same thing with you. Now, for example, as you said, there are many people that can do things with their bodies that you cannot do, and they may have never taken yoga.
Right.
But that's a reflection of what the body is capable of doing. What you can do is take the skill that you have and enhance the ability to use that body better.
But what I think people need to do is be able to, whatever their capacity in terms of body
Yes.
positions and poses, is that they're doing it in the context or with the intention of developing the mind.
There you go.
So you're doing these movements and postures not because you're trying to show I'm more flexible or I'm trying to become more flexible, but you're doing it because you're trying to engage your ability to concentrate.
Yes, you're trying to enhance the skill that results by doing it.
Right.
And the more you do it, the more focused you become, other things develop as a result of the exercising of the ability based upon the capability is there. We're capable with arms, legs, and knees, and elbows, and eyes. We have the capability of doing a lot as human beings. When we gain different kinds of abilities, therefore we embrace different crafts. I'm an architect, I'm an engineer, I'm an artist, I'm a sculptor, etc., etc., etc. Those are abilities that we then put into the barrel, so to speak, based upon the capability. We gain the ability. By doing them more and more and more, we become more skilled at doing it, thereby enhancing our consciousness, enhancing our perceptions and doing things and achieving things. That's what we do. Now, as a people, if we understand the capability and then take that capability and says, okay, this is what we want to solve, and then turn our attention towards solving that and gaining the skills that's necessary to resolve those issues, we will find solutions that in fact we've never considered, because we're honoring and recognizing the capability and then taking that and enhancing it with more ability.
Well, it seems like what you're saying too is that we have to have some practices, right?
Yes.
So like say your practice as an architect, as an artist, as all the things that you do, they reveal certain truths to you.
Yes.
So when you design a building, the process of you doing that design work, it actually, when you create a piece of art, that process reveals certain truths to you.
Yes.
That enhances, that expands your consciousness, that expands your understanding of what the nature of things are
In
and
some
what
instances
your true
also,
capacity is.
to add to what you're saying, it not only gives me things to do, but it also reveals to me things not to do.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if I do a technique wrong that you're training me in, you show me, well, don't do it that way because it's going to cause this problem. Do it this way so the technique emerges as a byproduct of the understanding that you have gained as a result of the practice. Then I, in turn, will gain the same quality of skills based upon the instruction that I get, so I'll know what not to do, because I'm going to create a problem if I do it that way versus doing it this way. So techniques emerge as a byproduct of application. Mm-hmm. Intentions happen, attention happens. All of those things emerge as a result of recognizing the capability is there and then putting ability in there, and then what emerges is a whole proliferation of understandings that results in technique, skills, application, revisiting what we've done in the past. But we're there. We don't have to necessarily, the past tells us it's achievable. That's what it does.
Right.
Then we take the past that says it's achievable, then take where we are now in terms of that capability, take that with ability, and then move forward from that moment. But utilize the past not as a crutch, but as a understanding of what is possible, because it's proven.
But this is my thought that just came into my mind about leadership, right?
Yes.
Because in the beginning of the conversation, we talked about the fact that we sort of compartmentalize or dichotomize all these different tasks. We should get some land, we should get this, we should do this and do that. And I think that one of the problems, one of the issues is that we have leadership that is very myopic and very limited in their grasp of the overall problem. That's why I always talk about the meta problem. What is the fundamental underlying issue that we need to be addressing, right? And so somebody would say, we just need some land and everything is gonna be okay.
Right.
The issue is that I think, we should go about the process of getting land, right? Even if we don't know, even if the individual person may not have the total picture and understanding,
Yes.
but the fact that he's going through the practice of getting land, that is going to lead their consciousness into something else, hopefully. Now, the problem with leadership is that leadership who are leading people into these various broken up activities, they don't have the vision. So even when they're leading people and telling people to do this or do that, to vote or whatever, they're not doing it with the idea that what is the game plan?
Yes.
What is the overall objective and goal that we're trying to achieve? And then moving people, whether they're conscious of the fact that they've been moved in a certain way. When people practice yoga, they just say, I'm gonna come and do this relaxation stuff. I'm gonna come stretch my back. And then when they get finished, they say, wow, I feel like a different person. I feel like I wanna do these fantastic things, or I wanna start to, I wanna stop eating pork chops and I wanna start eating me some broccoli. These realizations come about because they engaged in the practice. Whereas the teacher may know that if I get this person to engage in this practice, that it's going to eventually lead this person into a holistic way of looking at things and living their life.
Yeah, and one of the gestures that you just made was circular, and I was thinking prior to you making the gestures that we have a faulty way of reasoning. That faulty way of reasoning is that we think that things are linear. That is, there's good and there's bad. We do not understand that there's cycles. The universe is more spherical than in a straight line, but our reasoning is more linear in a straight line as opposed to cyclic, where there's an ending, there's a new beginning, and the universe functions that way. The planet functions that way. We do not understand that our capability affords us the opportunity to think more spherically and more circularly rather than accepted the idea that we only need to think in terms of what's right or wrong or what's good or bad. That's a very narrow way of reasoning. That's a child's way of reasoning. That's an improper instruction. We have to expand our understanding to realize that indeed we have multifaceted capabilities to do several things. It's just that we may not be able to physically do them at the very same time, but we can put our attention on achieving things spherically, because they do relate.
Yeah, because the universe is holistic.
There you go. And that holistic reality
Right.
is what we somehow want to achieve through our study of yoga, through our study of spiritual aspects, but we narrow the way we practice it by thinking that, and rather than communicate with each other and thereby come up with different solutions, we get stuck in the misunderstanding and think that, oh, I'm right, you got to be wrong, or you're wrong and I got to be right. That's a very narrow way of reasoning. That's not problem solving.
Right. Well, I was thinking about Hotep, right?
Yes.
So Hotep was as you know already, but I'll just say it, was the ancient Kemetic or ancient Egyptian priest, high priest,
Yes.
who was also an architect, an engineer, a writer, an inventor, but he was also, to me, he was one of the world's first yogis. He was a person who practiced yoga, who practiced meditation, and I believe that he went into a form of lucid dreaming that they had in ancient Egypt, which was called Resut Qued. And so the symbol is a bed with an open eye resting on top of the bed, meaning that you're in a wakeful sleep.
Yes.
So even though you're asleep, you're awake, you're conscious. And so in that state of consciousness, you're able to create mentally realities that you can then place into the physical world, into material world that never existed before. And I think that's what Hotep did. And I think that's why he had the capacity and the ability to excel, to be a master in multiple areas areas of endeavor that the average person living today thinks that they don't have the capacity to do.
Yes, that's true. So it's sort of like the core, the basic core of our realization is to honor and acknowledge the capability, the capacity. Once we do that part, then we can build everything else upon that. But without recognizing that that capacity is there, we limit our reasoning as to what we can and cannot do. And therefore it's said that if you think you can't, you're right.
So we're getting sort of like to the end of our time, right?
Yes.
Which is always too soon. But my final question would be Africa, right? We are the first people.
Yes.
All other people come from us as African people. We hold a special place, you know, in the earth. You know, to me, we should be protectors of the earth.
Yes.
We should be caretakers for the earth, because really the earth is really our caretaker, but we need to be in harmony and in tune with that. But do you feel that when we start to view ourselves from the perspective of Africa, and I don't mean like just black skin and stuff like that, or just the continent, because all human beings all over the earth originally had black skin.
Okay.
You know, had dark skin, whether they was on the continent of Africa itself, or whether they was in the Americas or Asia or South America, whatever. Those were the original people that we see. So do you think that as we start to look at ourselves in that context, that that's going to start to change the dynamic and get us to recognize what the meta problem and the meta issue is?
Yes, I think we've done something that's obvious to me a little backward. We are humanity. Everything else is a subdivision of reasoning associated with what that is or is not. So we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. We are humanity. The fact that it's been defined as it has been defined by those who are children, we've bought into the child leading the foe and defining what is and is not. The opposite is true. If we accept the fact that we are humanity, therefore we are human beings, anything subsequent to that is equally human, that's okay, but it doesn't detract in any way unless we accept the fact that somehow we're at the lower end of the totem pole, when in fact we are at the top of the totem pole, number one. Number two, if you look at a sphere, if you go up on a sphere, is away from center. Doesn't matter the direction you go. You take a ball, if you go take the center of a ball, any place that you go away from that center is up. We have been confused about the fact that somehow up is at a top of something, but in the sphere there is no top of a ball. It's a ball. So we bought into the wrong line of reasoning associated with where we are versus where someone else's are. And we've gotten to that point as a result of believing in a religious perception that has nothing to do with the truth. Okay? Religion, what we've managed to do is take God, the idea of God, the entity of God, and taken it and looked at it in a very, very, very poor and dishonorable fashion. So man made God in his image to explain something that he as man knew nothing about. You follow me? and then take that point of reference and then utilize it to define everything else from someone's point of view, who in fact is a child and do not know anything about that which he's saying. That's all that has occurred.
And when you say God, when you say man, you're really talking about a particular
The child.
group of men.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
The albino baby.
Right.
What I call new people.
So we'll talk more about that
Okay.
next time.
Not a problem.
So thank you very
sir.
much.